Well, good morning. Almost ended up wearing the coffee this morning. Now, a couple of days ago, I put out a video about all of my different power stations. And a few of you didn't really help because I said in the video, I have a battery problem, I admit it, but you were all like, nah, just get another battery. But my problem isn't that I can't stop buying batteries. My problem is my fuse. Let's go around the side of the house and I'll explain. So let's get into the fuse box. Okay, now for those of you in the UK, this will be very familiar. So this is your incoming supply. This comes in from the street. This is my 100 amp fuse. From there, it goes into my meter and then off to everything in the house. My problem, as I say, isn't my batteries, it's this. Now what that means is the maximum that I can draw for my whole house is 100 amps. And I'm getting very, very close to that limit. Let's head back inside. I'll show you how I've worked all this out, and then we can see, is there any spare capacity where I could squeeze in another battery or two? For the purposes of the exercise, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make an assumption that batteries charge at a constant rate. Now, we all know, depending on the battery, depending on the temperature, depending on how hard it's been working, how full the battery is, all of those things can have an impact on how much energy your battery can take in or discharge. Now, that means that modeling this is nigh on impossible because simple little things like temperature variations of the batteries or the individual cells in the batteries can have a different outcome. So I'm just going to assume for the purposes of this that batteries charge at a constant rate. If you think that's wrong and I've made a mistake, then hit me up in the comments and tell me why. Okay, the first thing I should say here is when doing something like this, I find it much easier if I can visualize the problem. If I can see a picture that explains what is going on, my brain takes it in a lot easier. So that's exactly what I've done here. So what I've done is I've taken a simple chart and I've started to model all of the different loads in my house. So what you can see here is we have an axis. Across the bottom of the chart there are the 30-minute time slots of the Octopus Intelligent Go tariff. So starting at 23:30 in the evening, going through till 5:30 in the morning. And I've done every half an hour. Now I could model this minute by minute, but I don't think it's going to make a huge amount of difference. So I've done it in 30-minute chunks. So the first thing we should do is to add our home load. Now, what I've done here is to do it all in amps. Because the fuse is in amps, I know batteries generally charge and discharge in kilowatt hours, but we're doing this in 30-minute slots and I'm going to use the maximum draw. So I've gone through all of my Home Assistant records and I've pulled out and said, what is the maximum this device has ever drawn on the coldest day of the year or the worst case scenario? So roughly overnight, when most of that period we're in bed, our house draws about 4.2 amps. So a kilowatt-ish. And that is pretty consistent throughout the night because there are things that run during the night. So my computers all do their backups. The UPS batteries are charging. We're running the heat pump to create hot water for the morning when we get up. So we consistently use about a kilowatt throughout the night. Then I'm going to add in my SolarEdge batteries. Now, my SolarEdge batteries are DC coupled batteries. There are 3 of them. They are 9.1 kilowatts each, or storage capacity of 9.1 kilowatts. They sit behind a 10 kilowatt SolarEdge inverter. So the maximum rate that we can charge those batteries is 10 kilowatts. Even though each battery theoretically has a limit of 5 kilowatts per battery, we're limited because of the inverter in front of them to 10 kilowatts. So starting at 23:30 in the evening and pulling in 10 kilowatts an hour, as you'll see, for roughly 3 hours, Those batteries, if they are completely exhausted to completely charged, will take about 3 hours. And at that point, we're pulling 42 amps, the full 10 kilowatts, to be able to charge those batteries. But at 2:30 in the morning, those batteries are full. So they then go into preserve charge mode. So they just sit there for the rest of the night, fully charged. Then we add on the heat pump. Now, the heat pump is the biggest variable in all of this because it never runs at the same or never consumes the same amount of energy, even on 2 days that seem almost exactly the same. So again, I modeled this on the worst day last year, so the coldest day of the year, and assumed that it would be running at full tilt all night, keeping the house warm and heating hot water. Now, it is never going to run like this. But again, we're modeling the worst case scenario here. So if the heat pump was on all night, drawing roughly 3.2 kilowatts, it would be drawing about 14.7 amps. As you can see now, if we start to look on the scale on the left-hand side, we're already well over 50 amps just with those 3 loads running during the night, or certainly for the first half of the night. Then we add in my wife's car. Now, my wife has an 11-year-old Nissan Leaf. She absolutely loves it. It has been rock solid. An 11-year-old electric car. For those of you that know how the Leaf displays its battery state of health, on the side of what we call the guessometer, this is the thing that tells you how much range you've got left in that particular day, that just wildly picks a random number and puts it on the screen. There's a little gauge, and I think it has 12 sections, and when your battery loses some of its state of or capacity of charge, one of those little things goes away and you never get it back. So we've lost one in 11 years. Now, I should say, we charge this car to 100% every single night. We don't nanny it. We don't do anything special. We plug it in and we charge it to 100%. Now, some days it only needs a small amount of energy if we haven't driven much. If she's been driving around all day in it, then it probably needs a good charge. But it's a 24 kilowatt battery. We only charge it at 3.6 kilowatts. And that's not because we want to preserve the battery. I think it can charge up to about 6.5. It was one of those second generation Leafs that had the slightly higher power AC charger. We limited it to 3.6 kilowatts just to keep the load down, and you'll see why in a moment. So I'm going to assume she's been driving all day, and we're going to pull in about 15 amps during that period to charge her car to get it ready for the next morning. So we're at 75-ish amps right now. Now, if I were to plug my Tesla in, and again, I limit my Tesla charging. I don't charge at the full 7.2 kilowatts. I actually charge it at just about around about 6, which is roughly about 25 amps. You could see there, we would be just breaching that 100 amp limit with my car and my wife's car and everything else consuming power on that worst day of the year. And we would blow, well, we probably wouldn't blow the 100 amp fuse, because although it's limited to 100 amps, you talk to any electrician, they'll say it will go quite a way over that. You might get another 10-15% before you actually blow it. But it is not designed to run in excess of 100 amps continuously. It's fine to kind of burst over, but don't be running it at 120 amps continuously. Now, the other thing I should say about house fuses is you are not allowed to have a spare. If you blow it, you have to go to your D&O and they will send somebody out who will come and replace it. I believe legally you're not allowed to have a spare. You're not allowed that. Remember, for people that say they've got a spare in a drawer somewhere, you're not allowed to have it. Anyway, moving on before one incriminates oneself. So then if I add on my power stream, my EcoFlow power stream with my Delta Pro batteries and the EcoFlow Stream batteries, you can see we're approaching 120 amps. And with 120 amps sustained for about 3 hours, I will probably end up blowing that fuse. Now, this is why I can't have another battery, because we're already, if we turn everything on, we're significantly in excess of our 100 amp fuse. Now, we could do some clever scheduling because, as you can see, once we get to about 2:30 in the morning and the SolarEdge batteries stop charging, we drop back down to about 75 amps. But if we blow it, lights are out, wife is very angry.
What the hell is wrong with you?
And shouting at me about what the heck have you been doing? And trust me, that's something that I don't want. So we never charge our electric cars at the same time. So to make sure we don't exceed that 100 amp limit, my wife's car gets charged or my car gets charged. My car, because it has a much larger battery and I don't drive as much, I probably charge it once a week. And so one night I let her know, hey, I'm going to need to charge my car. We don't plug her car in. So that helps bring that load down. We also slow down the EcoFlow battery charging slightly. When I say slow down, we reduce how much it's going to draw. So instead of drawing the full, I believe it's about 2,300 watts for the stream system, very similar, about 2,000 watts for the power stream. We bring those down. Again, I'd rather spread it out across the full Intelligent Octopus Go period than I would to, potentially chance blowing the fuse. So again, we bring those levels down to give us a much more reasonable load. So on a day where we're charging my car, because it charges at a higher rate, this is actually our worst case scenario. This is more real life than the previous chart. So as you can see there, we're running at about 95 amps. So we're still pretty close, but we are under the limit, which means we're not going to blow that fuse. And we've been running like this for a couple of years now. So there's no problems doing this. This works. But there's not a lot of spare capacity to add in more batteries. Remember, if we were to add in another battery system, we'd be adding in another inverter. We would need to pull in multiple kilowatt hours into those batteries over the night. But we do have some spare capacity. So from about 3 o'clock in the morning through till 5:30, we've got roughly 41 amps spare. So we could put another battery in there. Now, I should say at this point, we don't need another. I know this is difficult for me to say. We don't need another battery. But we could, in theory, pull in about 9.4 kilowatts for about 2.5 hours. So there is a potential there to put in another battery, to charge it up, to maybe do some energy arbitrage. Like I say, we don't need that capacity for the house, or for, I think, about 350 something days of the year. We don't need that energy for the house. The rest of the year, all that battery would get used for would be storing energy and selling it back to the grid. But we could, in theory, pull in about 23 kilowatt hours, store it in a battery during that spare capacity period. Now, if we assume about a 15% loss, so that would be because we'd be bringing in AC electricity, we'd be converting it into DC in the inverter and storing it in the batteries, and then we'd be taking it out of the batteries as DC, converting it back to AC and pushing it back out to the grid. So roughly 15%. Different people have different numbers there, but I think that's a reasonable estimation. That means we're really only going to get about 19.9 to 20 kilowatt hours in real life. Now, again, assuming that none of the tariffs change, that the Octopus Intelligent Go and Octopus Outgoing stay the same, we could buy that energy in overnight from that 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning through to 5:30 at about 7 pence per kilowatt hour, store it in the battery, and then we could sell it back to the grid later in the day at 15 pence per kilowatt hour, making about 8 pence per kilowatt hour. So that would mean in that period, we have the potential to make £1.59 per day. Now remember, there is some VAT to be paid on the incoming side at 5%, but there is no tax on the outgoing side yet. Again, all of this may change in the future. And this is why I always say, if you are thinking about buying a battery to do energy arbitraging, be careful, because the numbers and everything might work out today, and then tomorrow they might change all of the tariffs, and all of a sudden you've got a battery that won't pay for itself. So if that's your only use for it, is to do energy arbitrage, be very, very careful with your numbers. But I looked at, okay, what does a battery cost? if we were to do this, what would it cost? Well, I can get a Fogstar 15 kilowatt battery for about just under £3,000, comes with an 8-year warranty. Now, that price does not include fitting. Again, if you're installing inverters, you really need to notify your DNO. You need all the paperwork done. You need to have an electrician come in and make sure it's all done properly. So even if you're capable of doing it yourself, there's still going to be costs for an electrician to come in and certify the work. But based on that sort of £3,000 price and a very minimal install cost if you're doing it yourself, you'd be looking at about 5 to 5.5 years roughly to return that investment. And that's on the cheapest battery that I can find of that kind of capacity. If anyone knows of a cheaper battery, please let me know in the comments below. On the other side of the equation, maybe you go to someone like Heatable. Heatable will supply a Tesla Powerwall 3 at roughly about £6,895. That comes with a 10-year warranty. Now, again, that does not include fitting, and Powerwalls are... knocking my microphone there. Powerwalls, there's a lot of other stuff that needs to go around it, the gateway and other ancillary equipment that I haven't included in this cost. But just on that cost alone, again, without fitting, you'd be looking about a 12.5-year return on investment. Assuming that the tariffs don't change for the next 12.5 years is gambling. There's no other way to describe it. You really are gambling, and I honestly don't think the tariffs are going to stay for 12.5 years the way they are today. So the reality is, yes, I have a little bit of spare capacity. Yes, I could put another battery in. Does it make financial sense? Absolutely not. Will I do it? Well, you're going to have to stay subscribe to the channel to find out in the future. I have an idea, but I'm not ready to share it with everybody just yet. Anyway, that's it for today's video. I hope you found this interesting. Like I say, I'm a visual person, so being able to see it in a chart really kind of works for me. But if you want to try it out for yourself, again, if you've got all the numbers, put it all into a chart. It's very simple. When you look at that picture and you go, here is my fuse limit, I'm well above it. So anyway, I appreciate you clicking on this video. Before you go, I know a number of you have been asking if I was planning to launch a channel membership as a way of helping to support the channel. I have done that. If you would like to subscribe, then go back to the channel page. There is a join button up there with all of the details. I understand not everybody can afford to donate to help a channel keep going. So the only thing you will get from joining the channel, other than my dying thanks, is that you will get early access to some videos. Now, sometimes they're only like a day or two before I actually publish them because I have a day job. Well, I have a day job, not for too much longer, hopefully, but it means you will get early access to those videos. With that, I'm going to sign off. Thank you very much for clicking on this video. It means the world to me. And if I'm lucky, I'll see you back here real soon for another video. Take care. Bye-bye.